Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. Our glories to Jagat Guru Shri Prabhupada, our glories to Great Dev, our glories to Samal Vaishnava devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Welcome, Sahadev Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
So there is no need for introduction. The host himself is the host. So we're glad to hear from you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Nashtaprayashu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna. So we thank you for being here, dear devotees, as always. Today we're going to be discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, text number 32. Our originally scheduled speaker couldn't be here, so we kind of stepped in to be with you and share our little knowledge on the subject matter with you all. Yavan aham yata bhavo yad rupa guna karma kaha tataiva tatva vijyanam ashtute mad anugrahat. Yavan aham yata bhavo yad rupa guna karma kaha tataiva tatva vijyanam ashtute mad anugrahat. Yavanaham yatabhavo yadrupa guna karma kaha ya tataiva tatva vijyanam ashtute madanugrahat. So synonyms or word for word transliteration. Yavan, as I am in eternal form, aham, myself, yatha, as much as, bhavaha, transcendental existence, yat, those, rupa, various forms and colors, guna, qualities, karma, kaha, activities, tata, so and so, eva, certainly, tatva vijnanam, factual realization, as to, let it be, te, unto you, mat, mine, anugrahat, by causeless mercy. Translation and purport by Jagat Guru Param Guru A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. All of me, namely my actual eternal form and my transcendental existence, color, qualities, and activities, let all be awakened within you by a factual realization out of my causeless mercy. Purport. The secret of success in understanding the intricacies of a knowledge of the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is the causeless mercy of the Lord. Even in the material world, the father of many sons discloses the secret of his position to the pet sons. The father discloses the confidence unto the son whom he thinks worthy. An important man in the social order can be known by his mercy only. Similarly, one must be very dear to the Lord in order to know the Lord. The Lord is unlimited. No one can know him completely. But one's advancement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord can make one eligible to know the Lord. Here, we can see that the Lord is sufficiently pleased with Brahmaji, and therefore he offers his causeless mercy to him, so that Brahmaji may have the factual realization of the Lord by his mercy only. In the Vedas also, it is said that a person cannot know the absolute truth, personality of Godhead simply by dint of mundane education or intellectual gymnastics. One can know the supreme truth if one has unflinching faith in the bona fide spiritual master, as well as in the Lord. Such a faithful person, even though illiterate in the mundane sense, can know the Lord automatically by the mercy of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita also, it is said that the Lord reserves the right of not being exposed to everyone, and he keeps himself concealed from the faithless by his Yoga Maya potency. To the faithful, the Lord reveals himself in his form, quality, and pastimes. The Lord is not formless, as wrongly conceived by the impersonalist. But his form is not like one that we have experienced. The Lord discloses his form even to the extent of measurement to his pure devotees, and that is the meaning of Yavan, as explained by Srila Jiva Goswami, the greatest scholar of Srimad Bhagavatam. The Lord discloses the transcendental nature of his existence, and the mundane wranglers make mundane conceptions of the form of the Lord. It is said in the revealed scriptures that the Lord has no mundane form. Therefore, persons with a poor fund of knowledge concluded that he must be formless. They cannot distinguish between the mundane form and the spiritual form. According to them, without a mundane form, one must be formless. This conclusion is also mundane because formlessness is the opposite conception of form. Negation of the mundane conception does not establish a transcendental fact. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that the Lord has a transcendental form and that he can utilize any one of his senses for any purpose. For example, he can eat with his eyes, he can see with his leg. In the mundane conception of form, one cannot eat with one's eyes or see with his leg. That is the difference between the mundane body and the spiritual body of Sachit Ananda. That is the difference between the mundane body and the spiritual body of Sachit Ananda. A spiritual body is not formless. It is a different type of body, of which we cannot conceive with our present mundane senses. Formless, therefore, means devoid of mundane form, or possessing a spiritual body of which the non-devotees can have no conception by the speculative method. The Lord discloses to the devotee his unlimited varieties of transcendental bodies, all identical with one another with different kinds of bodily features. Some of the transcendental bodies of the Lord are blackish, and some of them are whitish, some of them are reddish, and some are yellowish. Some of them are four-handed, and some of them two-handed. Some of them are like the fish, and some are like the lion. All these different transcendental bodies of the Lord, without any differential category, are disclosed to the devotees of the Lord by the mercy of the Lord, and thus the impersonalists' false arguments claiming the formlessness of the supreme truth do not appeal to a devotee of the Lord, even though such a devotee may not be very advanced in devotional service. The Lord has unlimited numbers of transcendental qualities, and one of them is his affection for his unalloyed devotee. In the history of the mundane world, we can appreciate his transcendental qualities. The Lord incarnates himself for the protection of his devotees and for the annihilation of the faithless. His activities are in a relationship with his devotees. Srimad Bhagavatam is full of such activities of the Lord in a relationship with his devotees. And the non-devotees have no knowledge of such pastimes. The Lord lifted the Govardhan hill when he was only 7 years old and protected his pure devotees at Vrindavan from the wrath of Indra, who was overflooding the place with rain. Now this lifting of the Govardhan hill by a 7-year-old boy may be unbelievable for the faithless, but for the devotees, it is absolutely believable. The devotee believes in the almighty potency of the Lord, while the faithless say that the Lord is almighty, but do not believe it. Such men, with a poor fund of knowledge, do not know that the Lord is the Lord eternally, and that one cannot become the Lord by meditation for millions of years or by mental speculation for billions of years. The impersonal interpretation of the mundane wranglers is completely refuted in this verse because it is clearly stated here that the Supreme Lord has his qualities, form, pastimes, and everything that a person has. All these descriptions of the transcendental nature of the personality of Godhead are factual realizations by the devotee of the Lord, and by the causeless mercy of the Lord, they are revealed to his pure devotee and to no one else. Oma Jana Timarandasya, Jana Jana Shalakaya, Chakshir Onmilitam Yena, Tasme Shri Gurave Namaha, Shri Chaitanya Mano Bishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale, Swayam Rupakatamayam Dadati Swapadante Kam. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhakti Tilta Swamin Etinamine. Namaste Krishna Padaya, Prabhupada Ashtatatmane, Shri Guru Karuna Shakti, Bhakti Ti Etinamine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Etinamine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavade, Paschatya Dishatarine. Vanchakalpatarabhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Namo mahavadanyaya Krishna prema pradayate Krishnaya Krishna chaitanya namne gora tveshe namaha. Nama brahmanya devyago brahmanahitaya cha jagadataya Krishna govindaya namo namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shri Vasadi Guru Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, and thank you all for being here. I would like to read the translation again. All of me, namely my actual eternal form and my transcendental existence, color, qualities, and activities, let all be awakened within you by factual realization out of my causeless mercy. Srila Prabhupada, as we all may know, was very, very strong in dismantling the arguments of impersonal philosophy. So in his pranams, we often hear Nirvishesha Shunyavadi. He has an instrument that is sharpened, as sharp as one can ever imagine, to cut into pieces the false argument of impersonal philosophy, which kind of annihilates the form of the Supreme Lord. Srila Prabhupada quotes Lord Brahma. Salika Prabhu, if you may be able to put this verse on the screen for us, because Srila Prabhupada quotes Lord Brahma, who is the head of our Sampradaya. And we read a few verses prior to today's verse, how the Supreme Lord revealed himself to Lord Brahma and actually shook hands with Lord Brahma. So Lord Brahma saw the Supreme Lord, and the Supreme Lord revealed his eternal abode to Lord Brahma. So Lord Brahma is speaking from a first-hand encounter. It's not a second-hand or third-hand encounter. So in the Brahma Samhita, the first verse, of course, Brahma Samhita, Lord Chaitanya was able to give us just one chapter, which is chapter 5. And the first verse of chapter 5, Lord Brahma says something there to nullify the impersonal philosophy of the formlessness of the Absolute. So in Brahma Samhita 5.1, Lord Brahma says, Ishara Parama Krishna Sachit Ananda Vigraha Nadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. And the translation goes like this. I worship the primeval Lord. Let me see. I think I can do it here. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful spiritual body. That's what I wanted us all to see. That is what Lord Brahma is saying, that Krishna has an eternal, it is not temporal, and his body is blissful, and at the same time is spiritual. And Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that the Vedas says that the Supreme Lord has no mundane form. And the Lord Brahma is affirming that statement here, that the Supreme Lord has a form, but his form is eternal, is blissful, and is spiritual, such Chit Ananda. So these mundane impersonalists who think that Krishna not having mundane form means he's formless, it's not true. He has a form. The only difference is that his form is spiritual and our form is material. And Srila Prabhupada again explains in the purport that there are different forms. I'm here, sitting here as a person, so I have a form. I have one head, 2 ears, 2 arms, 2 legs. There are other forms that we call aquatics. They do not have legs, but they have tails, which they use to swim, to move around. There are other forms that have 4 legs. They do not have a hand, but it's a form. Krishna again explains that in each and every universe, there are so many planets, and each and every planet, there are different sets of beings. Different sets of beings that have predominance of one of the 8 material segregated elements of Krishna: earth, water, air, fire, ether. So there are certain planets where the living entities have forms that are predominated by air. And so they live in airy forms, or in other words, we say Etherian forms. So Lord Krishna, we know, as we just heard from Krishna himself, that he can never be known until he has revealed himself to an individual. So the question is, if one cannot know Krishna until the Lord has revealed himself to the individual, then what is the essence of studying the scriptures? Because we study the scriptures to try to know and understand Krishna. But Krishna is saying here that he can only be known by his own causeless mercy. When the Lord becomes so much merciful upon an individual, then the individual can know Krishna. Srila Prabhupada again explains in the purport that, of course, because the Supreme Lord is unlimited, no one can completely know Krishna. But the Lord reveals himself as much as necessarily possible to be known by the devotee, and the devotee will know him as such. So, again, in Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 18, Text 8, in the purport, Salika Prabhu, if you may, 118 in the purport, I think it's the very first opening sentence. Srila Prabhupada talks about how this knowledge of the Supreme Lord can be revealed to an individual. And this particular text we're treating describes the knowledge of Krishna to be very intricate. It's very complex. The knowledge of knowing
113.
118.
118. Okay.
The ability to know or have knowledge about the Supreme Lord is very, very complex. It's very intricate. And therefore, we should not be surprised when people do not understand the Supreme Lord, because it's not so easy to understand.
The purport you said?
I think you are giving a wrong quote. Is it? No, 118.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So in 118, Srila Prabhupada explains that the secret of success in spiritual life is being able to satisfy the spiritual master. No, because we always recite this prayer, Oma Jana Timrandasya Jana Jana Shalakaya Chakshur Onmeltam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurube Namaha. So we recited this prayer almost every day, that we are born in darkness, into darkness of ignorance, and the spiritual master who has seen the truth, who knows the truth, can open our eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. So the purport says, the secret of success in a spiritual life is in satisfying the spiritual master and thereby getting his sincere blessings. Without the blessings of the spiritual master, it is impossible for anyone to understand these intricacies of the knowledge of the Supreme Lord. And that is why we are very, very much blessed in the sense that we have the spiritual master. Such a spiritual master we have. And the spiritual master gives knowledge to satisfy the aspirant, the disciple. If you may go back to the previous verse, that is verse 7, Salika Prabhu. Oftentimes we think that pursuing spiritual life is just spiritual. But here it is said, being the eldest learned Vedantist, O Sutta Goswami, you are acquainted with the knowledge of Vyasadeva, who is the incarnation of Godhead. And you also know other sages who are fully versed in all kinds of physical and metaphysical knowledge. So here, the great sages who had assembled in the forest of Naimisharanya and who wanted to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam from a qualified individual, and this qualified individual was in the person of Sutta Goswami, who was a direct disciple of Shukadeva Goswami, who was trained and taught by his father, the incarnation of the Godhead, Srila Vyasadeva. And not just Sutta Goswami, not just Shukadeva Goswami alone, that Sutta Goswami knew or got information about the Absolute, but he also knew other great sages who were very much versed in physical and metaphysical knowledge. So in order for one to be a full-fledged devotee, one has to be very conversant with both physical, metaphysical, as well as spiritual knowledge. And Krishna affirms this statement by a statement he made in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text number 2. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text number 2. Krishna was imparting this divine knowledge to Arjuna. And he told Arjuna, he says, Arjuna, because you are my dear friend, because you are not envious of me, I'm going to impart this divine knowledge unto you. This divine knowledge constitutes both phenomenal and nominal. And by knowing this knowledge, there will be nothing else remaining to be known. Thank you for putting that up here. I shall now declare unto you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous. This being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know. And Srila Prabhupada explains in the paper, complete knowledge includes knowledge of the phenomenal world, the spirit behind it, and the source of both of them. This is transcendental knowledge. The Lord wants to explain the above-mentioned system of knowledge because Arjuna is Krishna's confidential devotee and friend. So thank you for putting that up. So being a devotee of Krishna means that we have to be very much conversant with both phenomenal and nominal knowledge of the Absolute. And Krishna gives us both knowledge in the revealed scriptures. Now, Srila Prabhupada in the purport was speaking very strongly about these impersonalists who kind of kill the form of the Supreme Lord. And Srila Prabhupada explains in so many different places in his purports that if someone, as a person, if a person has no eyes, if a person has no ears, if a person has no arm, if a person has no leg, then he is not a complete person. He's not something. If a person has no head, if a person has no arms, if a person has no these different bodily parts, then it means it's dead. And so directly or indirectly, the impersonalists are making so much effort to killing the Supreme Lord by denying his form. So whenever the impersonalists claim that God has no form, they are indirectly killing God. Because a formless being means it's dead. But God is never dead. God is always existing. He is the ever-existing supreme being. And he is permanent. Things change, beings change, the bodies change. He never changes. And so the Supreme Lord has a form. The only difference is that his form is blissful and is spiritual. And Srila Rupa Goswami, one of the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, explains and describes the nature of the Supreme Lord. Srila Prabhupada also shed some light on the qualities and the forms of the Lord in his purport, where Srila Prabhupada was saying that the Lord has various forms. He has 4-handed forms, he has 2-handed forms, he has blackish color form, he has reddish color form, he has yellowish color form, he has whitish color form. Anything one can conceive of, the Lord has a form of such conception. The Lord has a form that looks like fish. The form has form that looks like lion. The Lord has a form that looks like a boa. The Lord has form that looks like nothing. If you want to see the Lord as nothing, he will appear to you as such. And so when Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, sorry, I'm kind of used to Srimad Bhagavatam. I was going to say Canto. But Sri Salika Prabhu, if you can put on the screen for us, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 25. Krishna says the same thing he is saying in this text of 2:9-32, that he reveals himself only to his devotees. When he becomes very, very much affectionate to his devotees, then he reveals himself. No. So in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 25, Krishna says that I never manifest myself to the foolish and the unintelligent. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them, I am covered by my internal potency, and therefore they do not know that I am unborn and infallible. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that it may be argued that since Krishna was visible to everyone when he was present on this earth, how can it be said that he's not manifest to everyone? Does that make sense? Everybody saw Krishna walking on the streets of Vrindavan. So how then is Krishna saying that he's never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent? Everybody was there. They all saw Krishna. But how many really understood that this person walking here is the Supreme Lord? So he says, but actually he was not manifest to everyone. When Krishna was present, there were only a few people who could understand him to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is what happens. Krishna, sometimes, you can take it off, Prabhuji. Sometimes non-devotees, these impersonalists, they brag and they argue. Show me God. If God exists, show me. I want to see him. I want to see it. I want to see it. The problem is because you are not a devotee, if even the Lord appears before you, you're not going to recognize him. You're not going to accept him. Because in the first place, you are a fool. You do not know the value of God. You do not know the quality. You do not know the characteristics of God. So how can you know that this is God? How can you know an iPhone if you do not know what an iPhone is? You can only know an iPhone if you know what it is, or at least you've heard the characteristics of an iPhone. It's been described to you. And so the idea that God is formless, has no form, makes no sense. He has a form. If one claims that God does not have this, God does not have that, it's an insult. Because if God does not have it and you're talking about it, which means that it exists, then where did it come from? In other words, you're trying to say that God is not the source of everything. God is not the origin of everything. But if we understand that God is the origin of everything, then we can understand that if there are forms, then God must have form also. But his form is quite different from ours because ours go through so many different changes and transformations. The Lord's form does not go through transformations. I was talking about Sri Rupa Goswami, who wrote lots of wonderful literatures. The topmost is the Nectar of Devotion. In Nectar of Devotion, if we read chapters 21 through 24, if you may put that up for us, Salika Prabhu, just the chapters. We are not even going to go through the purpose. Chapters 21, 22, 23, 24. 21, 22, 23, 24. All these four chapters describe the amazing, blissful, transcendental qualities of the Supreme Lord. His form, his qualities, what he likes, what he does not like, how he behaves.
Nectar of Devotion
chapter 21. Like I said, it describes the qualities of Krishna. And one interesting quality, just hit the Nectar of Devotion and just go to the chapters, please.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Yes, and then scroll down to 21, chapter 21. Did you get it?
This is it. Can you see my screen?
Okay, let me see. Yes. Okay, so chapter 21. Yes, chapter 21 talks about the qualities of Shri Krishna. 22, qualities of Krishna further explained. 23, Krishna's personality. 24, further traits of Shri Krishna. So all these chapters, 21, 22, 23, 24, all these chapters describe the form of Krishna and his personal qualities. So if you just click on 21, just text 21, let's read a little bit about the qualities of Shri Krishna. Text 21.
Sorry, my internet is a little bit low.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
You're talking about this?
Yeah, okay. You may log out, and then I'll put my screen and I'll share the screen. Okay, okay, you are there. Yeah. So Sharupa Goswami, after consulting various scriptures, has enumerated the transcendental qualities of the Lord as follows, and altogether they are 64. Now, no, scroll up again, back to the beginning of the purport.
Okay. This is it.
Okay, yeah. Yes. Qualities of Shri Krishna. So it is said that the personal features of Krishna can be divided into two. One feature is covered and the other feature is manifested. So one of the covered features of Krishna, as Srila Prabhupada gives an example in the purport, is when Krishna was in Dwaraka and he dressed himself like a lady. Says there is an example of his covered personal feature in Srimad Bhagavatam in connection with his Dwaraka Leela, his residence in Dwaraka as its king. Sometimes Lord Krishna began to play by dressing himself like a woman. Seeing this form, Uddhava said, "How wonderful it is that this woman is attracting my ecstatic love exactly as Lord Krishna does. I think she must be Krishna, covered by the dress of a woman." So sometimes Krishna has manifested to his devotees who know him, still covers himself, and he plays pranks. Krishna, one of the wonderful qualities of Krishna is he's an excellent prankster. He likes to prank, you know. And like we saw, April Fool, Krishna played a very big prank on us. We had our scheduled speaker here to speak, and all of a sudden we saw another speaker who was here to speak, and we could not deny this speaker from speaking. So it turned out the unscheduled speaker had to speak, and the scheduled speaker could not speak. Now we have been able to rearrange for the speaker to speak at another day. So Krishna pranks. So even in his personal form, his form that everybody can see and appreciate and recognize that this is the Supreme Lord, there are two types. One is covered, where he plays pranks, and one is not covered, where you see him as he is. And there is a vivid description of how beautiful the Supreme Lord looks. You know, it is said that the Supreme Lord's neck is so beautiful, it's lined like that of a conch. His lips is reddish like the bimba fruit. His nose is pointed. His eyes is like the dove. His hair is like silk. So his chest, everything is described in the scriptures. But there is one particular quality of the Supreme Lord which is very enticing. And that is, if we read Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, text 29. Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, text 29. Sri Krishna says that he is not partial. He's not partial to anyone. But one of the characteristics of Krishna is that he is partial to his devotees. And even though one may think that Krishna is contradicting himself, he's not. Krishna is not contradicting himself, because in Bhagavad Gita, let me see if I can put it up here. Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, chapter 2, let me put it up. Okay, no, sorry, but 929. Thank you, no, 929, you got it right. 929. 929 says, Sabuham, yes, I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. In English language, there is a very, very strong and very powerful word, and that is but. It's just 3-letter word. But this but can change anything and everything prior to what was said before the but. And so Krishna is saying that I envy no one. He's not envious of anyone. Nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. And then the second part of the statement says, but whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also a friend to him. So one may question here that if Krishna is equal to everyone and no one is his special friend, then why does he keep special interest in the devotees who are always engaged in his transcendental service? So Srila Prabhupada explains in the paper that it's normal. It's like as human beings, and especially as devotees, we love each and everyone equally, but we love devotees very specially. We love each and everyone, but we love our children, our own biological children, specially. Or we love our own children, children under our care, specially. Therefore, even though Krishna is impartial, but he is partial when it comes to his devotees. And therefore, once one becomes a devotee of the Lord, if even one makes a mistake, the Supreme Lord does not take such mistakes seriously, and the Supreme Lord quickly rectifies the devotee's mistakes. And so the bottom line is that at all costs, one should become either a friend of Krishna, of God, or a devotee of Krishna, a devotee of God. At our present state, it is very difficult to become a friend of God, because we know how friends relate. We are not yet at the level to be friends of Krishna. The best bet for us is to become a devotee, of the Lord. And when we become a devotee of the Lord, then in the long run, we can become friends to the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada has given us the process that if we follow this process sincerely by, first of all, approaching a bona fide spiritual master and submitting ourselves to the spiritual master and studying under the lotus feet of the spiritual master with all eagerness and with all sincerity, then there will be a possibility of becoming devotees of God. And when we become devotees of God, then the Supreme Lord will favor us. And even when we go wrong, he will rectify us, and we will never lose anything, either materially or spiritually. Hare Krishna. So with that, our end, and if devotees may have questions, comments, realizations to the subject matter discussed, devotees may share. Thank you for being here, as always.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Masadi Prabhu, for stepping in to bridge gap for our speaker's absence. And anyway, it's not too surprising because it is not by chance or just by mere speaking that you were nicknamed Professor Sahadeva. Thank you very much for the elucidating class. So dear devotees, if there are questions or comments from devotees, please kindly indicate by using the hand emoji or raise your hand physically so that we can call you to ask a question. Before other devotees come up with their questions, we want to ask a question. In the course of the discussion, you started by quoting Lord Brahma having a first-hand vision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, but the question is that for someone who is non-devotee, how do you explain that Lord Brahma was not hallucinating? Because we see in today's experience that there are so many. In fact, recently, one of the pastors in our country here says that I'm drinking tea with God. So he said he is having a tea party with God. And this has raised so many controversial questions over the social media. So me here, Lord Brahma is saying that he's seeing Krishna face to face, first hand. So how do we differentiate this kind of seeing the Supreme Lord and the so many seeing of the Lord that we see? It was in the past that only in India, people are easily seeing God. Everybody sees God. And there are so many persons that will say they claim they see God. Now it's very common, even in our own Western Africa and all around here, to see people claiming that they are seeing God. So how do we differentiate this Brahma seeing and the seeing that our pastors here are seeing? Or maybe they are also seeing Krishna. Please educate us.
Thank you for the question, Shrisalika. I think I had asked this question similar to the question before. And the answer that was given to me, I'm going to repeat it because I was very much impressed with the answer. And the answer to the question is, this is Lord Brahma speaking. And there are other great acharyas who have also affirmed the same statement that Lord Brahma said. And so, if one goes to the court and one has to argue in defense of his case, one will have to prove quote past situations. Somebody is speaking. When one goes to the court to debate or argue his case, one will have to quote references of previous authorities. And by such references, of previous authorities, one can win his case. And so Lord Brahma is an authority. There are many other authorities. We have authorities like Asita. We have authorities like Vyasadeva. We have authorities like Narada Muni. We have authorities like Sutta Goswami. We have authorities like the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. We have authorities like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And all of these great authorities affirm the same thing that Lord Brahma is saying. And therefore, it will be incorrect for anyone to assume that Lord Brahma probably was hallucinating. No, he wasn't. It was revealed to him. And if something is factual, if something is truth, it stays eternally. It does not change. And what Lord Brahma described is exactly what still exists today. And therefore we read that the form of the Lord is eternal, it's blissful, and spiritual. And Lord Srila Prabhupada, who is also an authority, he also affirms the same thing that Lord Brahma said. So yes, it is a fact that the Supreme Lord, out of his causeless mercy, due to being pleased with Lord Brahma's devotion unto him, unto the Supreme Lord, revealed himself. So we should not forget that the Supreme Lord has 6 major transcendental qualities. And one of such qualities is renunciation. The Supreme Lord does not really care whether somebody knows him or does not know him. The Supreme Lord does not really care whether somebody accepts him as the Supreme Lord or not. That is the power of his renunciation. And so the Supreme Lord, while he was walking on the land in Vrindavan, playing like an ordinary child, ordinary boy, those who did not consider him to the Supreme Lord, he cared less. He didn't care. Whether you treat him as the Supreme Lord or not, he doesn't care because he's renounced. But it serves one to know him and serve him as the Supreme Lord as such. So yes, Lord Brahma was revealed by the Supreme Lord how the Supreme Lord looks like and his kingdom. The Supreme Lord revealed himself to Lord Brahma as he is. Like Srila Prabhupada will say, Bhagavad Gita as it is. He revealed himself as he is. And he composed this wonderful Brahma Samhita. So beautiful. And it was not hallucination in the sense that when we study the descriptions of Krishna as given by Lord Brahma, it is with clear vision. No mince of words. Hare Krishna. I hope that satisfies your question.
Thank you very much, Sahadeva, for the beautiful questions. Actually, what you said is repeating what Acharyas have said. It's amazing and interesting that people these days just, anyway, it's Kali Yuga, and it is explained that in Kali Yuga, all these things will happen, and then you see experience all of these things. So it's not unnatural, because we've read severally in this chapter, several verses leading to this verse, how Lord Brahma, before he was able to see the Lord, performed the power, austerities. And then here, these people have no sense of self-control. but yet they claim they see God. And someone was joking about and made a skit about the old stuff, and was saying that, okay, if he's having tea with God, that when he's going to have a dinner with God, he should invite him so that he will witness it. He's not asking him to, so that he could sit with them while they are having the dinner, but at least let him be their photographer so that he can snap them when he's having dinner with God. So it's an interesting thing how people can be so make people make
You
fun
see,
of
it's very interesting how our scriptures are written, because if we go back to the text itself, the text we're discussing today, 2:9:32, something beautiful is said in the text, which is a catch. It's something we can use to defeat these false diners with God. It says that Krishna is saying that all of me, namely my actual eternal form, my transcendental existence, color, qualities, and activities, let all be awakened within you by factual realization. Factual realization. Realization is there, but it has to be factual, because some people may even say that they have realized, which most cannot say. But even those who can claim that they have realized, Krishna is saying that factual, because Lord Brahma factually realized the Supreme Lord. And how did Lord Brahma factually realize the Supreme Lord? Out of the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord. Even though it is causeless, but something will have to trigger that causelessness. And that trigger is the tapa that you were talking about, the austerities. Because Krishna says that austerities is he himself. And we see in this material world, in order to achieve anything important, you have to perform austerities. You have to go through so much inconveniences. So there is the common saying that the uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. If you want this head to wear a crown, you have to go through so much pain and difficulty. No. Like yesterday, Nitya Kishore Devi, when she was speaking, she was saying, even those who win Oscars, they have won, but they know that they did not get to that particular recognition on their own. Some people helped them. So by factual realization, one will know that he is having this darshan of the Lord, he's having this understanding of the Lord because of the help of someone. And the key of the someone's is the spiritual master. There are many others also, devotees, and even objects. We read about an Avaduta having so many beings and objects as his spiritual master. The ocean as his spiritual master. The mountain as his spiritual master. So we can learn from anyone and everyone. But we never forget where we were coming from and where we're going. And once one devotes himself to Krishna through the proper discipline of disciplic succession, one's attainment of Krishna is assured. Krishna himself will make it possible for that unalloyed devotee of his to realize him. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for the explanation. So, dear devotees, if anyone has a question or comment or contributions, please kindly indicate. Don't be scared of Professor SAHADEVA.
No.
Let's reflect a little bit on the text of today.
Yeah.
You mentioned that when you quoted, in fact, you quoted a verse in the 4th paragraph. Prabhupada said, to the faithful, the Lord reveals himself in his form, quality, and pastimes. And Krishna confirms that in the Bhagavad Gita verse you quoted when he's talking to Arjuna, chapter 9.
29.
Yes. I reveal myself to the devotees. Now,
Yeah.
and you quoted further the verse where it says that he's not partial. He's not partial, it's equal to everyone. So now my question then is, in the light of this, who is a faithful devotee of the Lord? How do we identify a faithful devotee of the Lord in the midst of those who worship the Lord or who claims to be worshiping the Lord? Because we see, especially in today's world, we see that there are so many claims of faithful person. We were in the program yesterday, and we were having a conversation about different faithful worshippers of God from different tradition and different concept of God realization. And one imam, one cleric, he mentioned clearly that the prophet, peace of Allah be upon him, appreciates whoever is a faithful person. And he was narrating a story. And the story goes like, by seeing the activity of those of them who are faithful persons, he saw some Jews, because the prophet, being a Muslim, but he saw some Jews, and by their activities, he was able to identify that these people are actually followers of the teachings of the Torah. And then we also see in the New Testament that we see that
Well, Salika appears to be frozen. It seems to have.
We see that it is very difficult to identify people by their. My network seems to be flocking. Okay,
we can hear you.
Okay, good. So it is in those times. My point is that based on that narration of the prophet, peace of Allah be upon him, and even the beginning of the early Christians, they were identified by their character, by lifestyle. But today we find it difficult, even in Vedic traditions, even in our Krishna consciousness movement. It's very difficult to find to identify persons by their character, whether they are devotees or they are non-devotees. And Krishna is talking about faithful here. So who is a faithful devotee of the Lord? How do we identify them? Because today it's actually almost impossible to identify people, because sometimes you see someone very nicely dressed in nice tilak, and the next thing you hear, some kind of unbelievable activity he has committed. So please, could you shed light on this?
Well, Hare Krishna, thank you for the beautiful question. Faith is very important because it is the basis on which we can build our devotional life, we can build our spiritual life. And being faithful in the first place should make it clearly understandable to us that we are dealing with a person. Because faithful means that you are committed to a particular person or to a particular discipline or to a particular instruction. All will have to come from a person. So being faithful means that an individual is committed, is steadfast in honoring that particular individual's likes and dislikes. Like, in order for me to be friends with you, I should be able to do the things that you like. If I keep doing things you do not like, it's only a matter of time. We cannot be friends. And so being faithful means that we understand what God likes, what God does not like, what God expects of us, what God does not expect of us. And so the scriptures are there. So those who claim to be faithful to God, we can test their faith with a litmus test, and that is what the scriptures say. And let's see if that particular individual is doing that. Now, some people are very expert at faking. And so some people can externally portray themselves as being very faithful to their tradition, to their philosophy, to their teachings, but internally, we do not know. And that is why oftentimes it is said that we are not concerned about quantity. We are more concerned about quality. But our chariots tell us that that is even not good enough. Wonderful quality is not good enough if the intent is not authentic. So that ultimately explains that faithfulness is within the heart. And only Krishna can tell, truly speaking, whether someone is faithful or not. Because someone can very wonderfully fake faithfulness externally for everybody to see. There is this story that was shared, I think we shared this some time ago. This was shared exactly 1 year ago, maybe a week or so to 1 year ago in New Vrindavan. His Holiness Chandramali Maharaj was giving a workshop to disciples. And even though it's disciples, but it was open to all devotees. So some of us were there, and there was a workshop held. And Arichakra Prabhu narrated a story that he had heard from Buddha Bhavana, that there was one devotee. He was a very wonderful pujari. He never fails going on the altar to wake the deities and do his pujari duties. So one day, he fell asleep and was almost going to run late. And then he had a dream. Somebody was waking him up. Says, hey, it's almost time. You have to wake up to attend to the deities. You have to go on the altar. So he was trying to figure out, who is this person who has come to wake me up to go on the altar? And then this particular individual revealed herself that I am Maya. Says, what? You, Maya, coming to wake me up to go and wake up the Lord, attend to the Lord? And Maya said, yes, I've come to wake you up because I have duty to perform. And you're serving me in my duties because you have so much false ego. You have so much puffed upness that you are such a wonderful pujari. You want everybody to know you that you are the wonderful pujari. And I want to help you in that regard. And so I came to wake you up. And so it's very interesting, you know. So we may be doing some things very wonderfully, but within our hearts, we should ask ourselves, are we doing this to impress people how good we are? Or are we doing whatever we're doing so nicely just to please the senses of the Supreme Lord? That most of us cannot judge externally. Only Krishna can judge. But at least outwardly, we can judge how faithful one is by how truthful and steadfast that particular individual is in following the rules, the regulations, and the teachings of whatever discipline that individual person is following. If someone claims to be faithful of a particular sampradaya, of a particular discipline, but we do not see him following such disciplines, then we cannot say he's faithful. But if even someone is following those disciplines, externally we can say, yeah, he's faithful. But ultimately, Krishna is the ultimate judge. Whether the person is truly, honestly, sincerely rendering those services out of duty-bound service to pleasing Krishna. That is only Krishna to judge. That is all I can say. Maybe other devotees may shed more light on this important question because it's so common in this modern age when anybody can say that I'm very faithful to my church, to my God, I'm faithful to this, I'm faithful to that. And like you said, everybody says that, and the Lord spoke to me, and the Lord said to me. Now, you may not see me, but because you know me, when you hear my voice, you will know that this is Sahadeva speaking. I don't know when somebody saw God and heard his voice. And so when he hears his voice next time, he can decipher that this is the voice of God. Only they can tell. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. You know, in my local tradition, they said, signs are very powerful, that it reflects whether it is true, whether it indicates the truthfulness of falsehood of some certain situations. So I think what you're saying is the truth, because as you were speaking, Krishna showed himself to me also.
Now,
because I received some.
Yeah, Krishna said that he does not manifest himself to the unintelligent and the foolish, right?
Yeah.
And Lord Jesus Christ said the same thing too in the Bible. I think Matthew 7:6, it says, an intelligent person will not cast his pearls before the swine.
The swine.
So if someone is claiming that he is in communion with God and he's doing all sort of nonsensical things, then you can tell that it's not true.
Exactly.
No, it's not true.
So, you know, in my local tradition, so when an elderly person is speaking, or when you're talking about something that is very unique, and then maybe the the cloud roar, and you hear the roaring of this cloud, or some significant thing happen that are natural, that are nature, that is not within the human nature, that is not under the control of human nature, then they say, oh, God is actually witnessing this is truth. So as you were giving these explanations, so I saw one sign, which I will not reveal here because it's confidential to me, so that you will not say so I won't go into the social media that I'm drinking tea. But as you were speaking, God gave me some sign, which is personal to me. And I think what you're saying is true. Don't mind me. Hare Krishna. I'll share with you confidentially as permitted later on.
Thank you so much, Hare Krishna.
So thank you very much for the beautiful answers, actually. The understanding of Krishna and Krishna's activities and how he reveals himself to his devotees is a very interesting subject matter. And it is the whole essence of our practice of Krishna consciousness. It's actually interesting because I'm on the top of some preaching program. I was traveling with some of the clerics. We had a program in Kaduna. So then I was coming down to Abuja. We're having a program here to be tomorrow. And I was sitting with we are all clerics, Reverend Father, Imam, and we're in the car, we're talking about God, how he relates, how he manifests in different traditions and all of that. And we were reflecting on some of the things that happened yesterday. And the Imam sitting next to me in the car was explaining that it is amazing that it is something similar to when we hear the story of the gopis of Vrindavan, how they during the Ras Leela. Arishakra Prabhu, please, I'll call it in a short moment. So I was just thinking about the Ras Leela when he was speaking, how Krishna will, according to the level of your faith in him, will reveal himself. But how he reveals himself is only between you and Krishna. But when we talked about the absolute truth, which is what Prabhupada is trying to emphasize here, the level of that level of realization is very difficult to comprehend, because Lord Brahma, when he composed that beautiful Brahma Samhita, which you quoted in the course of your lecture, Lord Brahma was in a particular state. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that everybody is seeing God on a daily basis because Krishna is everywhere. But how he's revealing himself to individual is actually dependent on each and everyone's level of realization. So what you said is actually absolutely true. Thank you very much for the answers. Arishakra Prabhu, please kindly unmute.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Dandava Pranam, all glories to Guru, all glories to Prabhupada.
Yeah, well.
And all glories to the assembled devotees. Okay, thank you very much, SAHADEVA, for jumping in to give us all these references that you have been able to give. Thank you. Yeah, it's just like a comment to the question that Salika Prabhu asked. Actually, both questions. Like Gurudev used to say that.
I check. Excuse me, before you go on with your comment. Did I get the pastime of Maya right? Maya waking the Pujaria.
Oh, somebody was buying something, so I got distracted.
Oh, okay. Okay. I said it as much as I could remember you narrated it. Okay. So okay. I believe I got it right.
Yeah, Gurudev used to say that if a woman keep telling the husband that, honey, I love you so much, I'm so much in love with you that I cannot sweep the room. I'm so much in love with you that I can't cook. I'm deeply in love with you that I just want to lie down and sleep. Good, and then Good Dave said, what kind of love is that? So similarly, when we say someone says he has seen God, like Salika Prabhu was saying in John chapter 5 in the Bible, I think from verse 11, I've forgotten the exact verse, where it is said that Jesus said that there cometh a time when the true worshippers of God shall worship him in truth and in spirit and in truth.
Mm.
In other words, you cannot claim you are worshiping God when you are not worshiping him in spirit. How would you know that you are worshiping God in spirit? So Paul also says something in Galatians chapter 5, from verse 19 to 21. He was differentiating between things that are related to the flesh and things that are related to the spirit. So if you read those qualities and someone tells you that I'm worshiping God in spirit, but it's not emanating these qualities in his day-to-day life. I mean, if he's emanating the fleshy qualities, then you immediately understand that this person is just a liar.
Mm.
If he's emanating the spiritual qualities as elaborated, then you know, oh, maybe he's up to something.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, Krishna tells us that by whatever we are doing, the more we are devoted to him, the more he makes himself available to us, the more he reveals himself to us. And actually, when Krishna reveals himself to you, it's like when you eat and you get full. Nobody will tell you how full you are, right? But you yourself will be able to see, and people around you will also see by the fruits that you bear. And one of the fruits is that of humility. So if whether you are a devotee or you are if you are a Christian, you are a Muslim, or whoever you are, if you start bragging that I'm a serious devotee, I've been in movement all these years, and I'm very serious devotee, and that alone is enough to tell you that you are not serious.
Mm-hmm.
You see, because like someone saying that I'm a gentleman, we don't hear gentlemen, we see gentlemen. A girl will be fighting at the marketplace, saying some horrible words, cursing words, and still she claims, I'm a lady. How are you a lady? The qualities you are emanating does not portray a ladylike quality. So people should see you, and then they should feel closer to God. Prabhupada also say that if people see you and it makes them remind them of God, then it means you are getting closer and closer to God. So by our fruits, people should know us. And this is, I mean, everywhere, whether we call ourselves devotees, whether we call ourselves Christians, whether we call ourselves Muslims, somehow or the other, one day, Krishna will somehow provoke you. He will provoke you in one way that if whatever quality you are suppressing, whatever, what do we call it? Whatever pretense that you are pretending, you yourself will reveal you will reveal yourself for people to know that after all. So yeah, so it's true. The answer you gave to Salika was really on point, because you cannot hide. You cannot hide behind it. Sometimes temporarily you might be able to hide, but for how long? It will not last. You will show your true colors. You will definitely show your true colors, and people will know you. That like the priest who says he's having a tea with God. Go closer to him a little bit, then you know whether he really has tea with God or he was having tea with Satan.
One also said that he stopped, he came to the US and where you are in the States, and it was the winter time, but he commanded the winter to become summer for the period of the time he was there to preach, because he doesn't like cold. So therefore, he spoke, and even nature listened to him. And people were trying to find out when was that happened. That in the US, maybe Sahadev will remind you, since you are living in this in the state. That in the
He was saying he was somewhere Colorado, and Colorado is a very cold zone. So, I mean, people speak like that. It's unfortunate, but
yeah, it's unfortunate. Thank you very much, Suman Sadi. So, dear devotees, does anyone still have any question or comments before we call it a day? We've been here quite some time. It's been almost 2 hours now that we've been here. Okay, if there are no more questions or comments, on this note, I will request all of the devotees to kindly unmute themselves. Let us express our deep appreciation for today's speaker, His Grace Sriman Sahadev Prabhu, for his beautiful class, even though it comes as a sudden service.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Rama,
Hare Rama,
Hare Rama,
Rama
Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
Pancha Kalpa
Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripasinubhyascha Titanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo. His Grace Sahadev Prabhu ki.
His Grace Sriman Sahadev Prabhu ki jai.
Shri Bhakti Siddhaswami Maharaj ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Vaishnava Thakur ki jai. Nitai Gaura Piminande.